Do you ever catch your mind spinning stories about disasters that haven't happened yet? Maybe you're lying in bed and suddenly your brain decides to run a full horror movie about tomorrow's meeting, next month's finances, or that text message someone hasn't replied to yet. You're not crazy. You're not weak. Your mind is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Except it's doing it in a world it wasn't built for. Here's what's really happening. Your brain has turned into a paranoid detective, constantly scanning for threats and building cases against your peace of mind. It takes tiny pieces of uncertain information and weaves them into elaborate stories of catastrophe. The meeting becomes a firing. The delayed text becomes rejection. The slight headache becomes a serious illness. And the exhausting part? None of it has actually happened. This is the hidden anxiety loop, a cycle where your mind creates problems that don't exist, then treats them as if they're real emergencies. It's like having a smoke detector that goes off every time you toast bread. Technically, it's working, but it's making your life unbearable. Dr. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, discovered something fascinating about how our brains process threats. We have what he calls a negativity bias, our ancient survival system that kept our ancestors alive by assuming the rustling bush contained a predator, not a harmless rabbit. The cost of being wrong about danger was death. The cost of being overly cautious was just some wasted energy. But here's the problem. That same system is now running 24/7 in a world full of rustling bushes that are just rustling bushes. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and an awkward silence in a conversation, between a physical threat and an imaginary one. It treats your boss's frown the same way it would treat a charging animal, full alarm mode, fight or flight, except there's nowhere to run from your own thoughts. You know what makes this worse? Most of us try to stop anxious thoughts by fighting them directly. We tell ourselves, don't think about it, or just relax. But neuroscientist Dr. McGonigal discovered something crucial in her research. Trying not to think about something is like trying not to think about a white elephant. The harder you push against the thought, the stronger it becomes. This is what psychologists call the ironic process theory. Your brain needs to monitor the forbidden thought to make sure you're not thinking it, which means you're constantly thinking about it. It's like having a song stuck in your head and trying to force it out. The more you resist, the louder it plays. Your anxious mind works the same way. The energy you spend fighting anxious thoughts actually feeds them. You're not calming the storm. You're giving it more wind. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. When anxiety hits, something specific happens in your brain that hijacks your ability to think clearly. Dr. Joseph LeDoux, a leading neuroscientist, mapped out exactly how this works. Your amygdala, that ancient alarm system deep in your brain, can trigger a full stress response in about 12 milliseconds. That's faster than conscious thought. By the time you realize you're anxious, your body is already flooded with stress hormones, your heart is racing, and your rational mind has been temporarily pushed offline. This is why anxious thoughts feel so convincing. Your amygdala doesn't care about logic or probability. It sees potential danger and sounds every alarm. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning and perspective, gets overwhelmed. It's like trying to have a calm conversation while fire alarms are blasting in the background. No wonder everything feels urgent and catastrophic. But here's what most people don't know. Emotions, even intense ones, have a natural lifespan. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, a neuroanatomist who studied her own brain during a stroke, made a remarkable discovery. The physiological response of any emotion, including anxiety, lasts exactly 90 seconds. 90 seconds. That's how long it takes for the stress chemicals to flush through your system and metabolize completely. So why does anxiety sometimes last for hours or days? Because we keep re-triggering it. We think the anxious thought, feel the physical response, then think about why we're feeling anxious, which triggers more anxiety, which makes us think more anxious thoughts. We're not experiencing one wave of anxiety. We're creating an endless series of them. Here's your first practical tool, the 90-second technique. When you notice anxiety starting, instead of fighting it or feeding it with more worried thoughts, simply acknowledge it. Say to yourself, I'm having an anxiety response. This will pass in 90 seconds. Then focus on the physical sensations without the story. Notice your breathing, your heartbeat, the tension in your shoulders. Don't try to change anything, just observe. Watch the wave rise, peak, and naturally fall. Most of the time, when you stop adding fuel to the fire burns out on its own. Think of it like being caught in ocean waves. You can exhaust yourself fighting against them, or you can float and let them carry you until they naturally settle. Your anxiety works the same way. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. But what about those persistent worries that seem logical? The ones where your mind insists it's just being realistic about potential problems. This is where the Stoic philosophers, particularly Marcus Aurelius, offer profound wisdom that modern psychology has validated. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire while dealing with plagues, wars, and constant threats, developed a simple but powerful question that can dissolve most anxious thoughts. Is this within my control or outside my control? Here's how to use this practically. When an anxious thought grabs you, pause and ask yourself this question. If it's within your control, you can make a plan or take action. If it's outside your control, you can practice what the Stoics called the discipline of desire, accepting what you cannot change while focusing your energy on what you can influence. Let's say you're worried about a job interview next week. What's in your control? Preparing your answers, researching the company, getting enough sleep, choosing appropriate clothes. What's outside your control? Whether they'll like you, if another candidate is more qualified, the interviewer's mood, economic factors affecting hiring. When you clearly separate these categories, anxiety often loses its grip because you're no longer wasting mental energy on variables you can't influence. But here's the deeper insight. Most anxiety isn't really about the future event itself. It's about your fear of not being able to handle whatever happens. And that fear is almost always overestimated. You've handled difficult things before. You've survived 100% of your worst days so far. Your brain conveniently forgets this when it's busy catastrophizing. Think about the last time you were really anxious about something. Maybe it was a difficult conversation, a medical test, or a financial decision. How did it actually turn out compared to what your mind predicted? Chances are, either it wasn't as bad as you imagined, or if it was challenging, you found a way to cope that you hadn't considered beforehand. Your anxious mind is like a weather forecaster who only predicts storms and never mentions your umbrella. Here's your second practical technique, based on research from Dr. Martin Seligman, the founder of positive psychology. It's called evidence testing. When an anxious thought appears, instead of accepting it as truth, treat it like a hypothesis that needs investigation. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this worst-case scenario will actually happen? What evidence do I have against it? What's the most likely realistic outcome? For example, if you're thinking, I'm going to mess up this presentation and everyone will think I'm incompetent, examine the evidence. Have you prepared? Have you given presentations before? Even if some didn't go perfectly, did people actually think you were incompetent, or did they barely notice the small mistakes that felt huge to you? Usually, when you investigate anxious thoughts like a curious scientist, rather than accepting them as facts, they start to lose their power over you. The truth is, your mind will always generate some level of anxiety. It's part of being human. But you don't have to let every anxious thought rent space in your head or dictate your decisions. You can learn to observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. You can acknowledge uncertainty without drowning in it. You can feel the physical sensations of anxiety while still choosing courage over comfort. Remember, anxiety often masquerades as preparation, but real preparation is taking concrete action on what you can control. Anxiety is just mental spinning that exhausts you without moving you forward. It's the difference between packing for a trip and worrying about all the things that could go wrong on the trip, while never actually packing. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journal nearly 2,000 years ago, "Today I escaped anxiety, or no, I discarded it, because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside." Your anxiety isn't happening to you. It's something your mind is creating, and what your mind creates, it can also release. So the next time you catch your inner detective building a case against your peace of mind, remember, you don't have to believe every story your brain tells you. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply choose not to engage with thoughts that don't serve you. What would change in your life if you stopped solving problems that don't exist and started trusting your ability to handle whatever actually comes your way?